Welcome to Box Out Banter, where apparently James Harden is now on his way here. Oh no, we didn't get him? I guess not. I'm Chris Okamura, and this is Jordan Christmas. How's it going, Jordan?
It's going good. Just catching up on some hoops on this great MLK Day.
Absolutely. Happy MLK Day, everyone.
Yes, and shout out to all the brands that are going to tweet about it and not follow up on any of MLK's beliefs. But
MLK Day should just be an NBA holiday at this point. It is.
It basically is
a joyous NBA day.
It basically is already. I was also coming off of a weekend of some football. Got some good matchups coming up for the conference championships. So I was a little preoccupied with that. Attack on Titan. It was a good overall weekend. Can't complain. What about you, brother?
Not bad. About the same. We had a fun Dragon Ball Fighters tournament.
Yes, that I am still salty that I came in second.
So let's just get right into it. Jordan, I want to know, from a Sixers perspective and a Sixers fan perspective, how do you feel about this James Harden to the Nets trade?
Ooh, well,
that sigh.
So I kind of, on my solo podcast, the Sly Hooper podcast, I kind of, at the end, I gave like a 15-minute just honest assessment of the Harden trade from the Sixers perspective. Obviously, I went over the trade and the teams and stuff, and who quote unquote won the trade or whatever. And then, of course, I talked about the Sixers who were in the running for James Harden, pretty much the favorites to land James Harden, even though the Nets were Harden's first destination. I even got a text from one of my friends who listened. It was just like, wow, I cannot believe how honest you were about Harden and Ben Simmons. So let me just start here. So it looks like, from what I have been reading over the last few days, gathering my thoughts on it, it sounds like either one of two things were true in this, all resulting in the same thing that led up to the Rockets choosing the Nets trade package. One, Tillman Fertitta did not want to deal Daryl Morey's former MVP caliber player to the Sixers, obviously based on the history there and how Daryl left, and blah, blah, blah. Or, like The Athletic reported, the Sixers were kind of used as a leverage point to basically get every draft pick from the Brooklyn Nets. So we're doing Brooklyn Nets Redux, part 2 of Mortgaging the Future. I feel weird about it because obviously
this is a lot more sustainable, and this is going to pay off more than the last time they mortgaged their future.
Yeah, because at least they'll have like 2 or 3 years of transcendently great players as opposed to aging superstars, right? But from a Sixers perspective, I had a lot of mixed things. So I was fine with whatever Daryl Morey decided, but I was at the point where I was like, all right, it's time to trade Ben Simmons for James Harden. Obviously, I would have done it from the beginning. It's not a hot take. James Harden is one of the greatest offensive players ever. And pairing that with a guy who, when engaged, I think is the most impactful defender in basketball, that would have been a great combination. I think that would have made the Sixers the surefire favorite in the East with a bullet. And obviously, I would have put them not right behind the Lakers, because I think there's still a sizable gap there, but I would have definitely had the Sixers as team number 2 in the league. I'm at the point now where it was like, okay, I wanted Ben Simmons and the Sixers, as constructed right now, with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid leading the Sixers. The Sixers probably have, like, if you put odds, it was a 1% chance maybe they come out of the East. But if you traded Simmons for Harden, it would have made them contenders. So I'm kind of struggling with that. But I'm also at the point now, the Harden trade, it kind of made me, I guess, be real about maybe Simmons' trade value isn't as high as we think. Everybody still thinks he's a good player, but people have grievances with the fact that he still can't shoot. I still am facing the fact that he's been the same offensive player with slight micro improvements here and there since his rookie year. He still can't finish around the rim with his left hand. He still can't finish around the rim efficiently in general. He can't shoot from anywhere, which not only is that a hindrance, not shooting from three, he doesn't shoot anywhere on the court. So that's kind of hindered him. And there's obviously a ceiling with this team because there's a half-court creation problem this team hasn't solved yet. So obviously I would have loved for the Sixers to get Harden, but it just seems like the Rockets had a better offer. It came down to the Nets had a bunch of draft picks, and the Rockets went with that. And I don't blame them, although from a Sixers standpoint, it does kind of stink because we've been put in this position with terrible decision making after Hinkie left that the only choice to get better and to solve our elite half court creation problem was to trade Simmons because he was our best asset, because we pissed away so many assets in the past that we can't even prepare to offer a trade package where we could have our cake and eat it too, where it's Simmons, Harden, and Embiid. So there's a lot of mixed things on this. I'm kind of bummed that the Sixers didn't get Harden. I still love Simmons. I think he's a really good player, but I am really questioning his ceiling at this point, especially because it's year 5 now of him basically being the same offensive player. So I'm just looking at Harden making his debut, dropping a 30-point triple-double in his first game. And, you can't help but feel hurt by that, I guess. So that's my long-winded take on it. But I just had dreams of, even if it was for 2 or 3 years, that's 2 or 3 years of a title window that was never open, maybe in the first place.
Right. So I think that's pretty measured. I think the important thing to me is like the dynamic that Harden brings with Embiid that would have been really, really nice. Although I did call this Nets thing.
The Nets were Harden's first choice.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that kind of pushed it over the edge for the Sixers not getting him was kind of the hesitancy to put in like Maxey and some of the younger guys.
Yeah.
And Thibault. I think as soon as you take off, giving up Harden for Simmons is one thing, but with Maxey and Thibault, you're really losing a lot of guard depth.
And they also, according to Kevin O'Connor, they asked for not only Simmons and Maxey, but also a lot of draft picks.
Right. So I think obviously at that point they're paying the petty tax, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're paying the Daryl Morey tax there.
Yep.
And his relationship with the Rockets, and
how he left and saying he was going to take a year off, but then takes a job. Yeah.
Obviously, they were going to have to overpay, considering everything that they need to get. That being said, I think every team involved in the trade won here.
Yes.
Which is really rare to see.
So before we go into the trade, can I read off the whole details of the trade just so everybody can get
keep
the perspective? Yes. Okay. So it was a 4-team trade, which was another factor I think Brooklyn didn't expect and why they ultimately went with this deal. But it was a 4-team trade between the Brooklyn Nets, the Houston Rockets, the Indiana Pacers, and the Cleveland Cavaliers. So the Nets, they just get James Harden. That's it. And the Houston Rockets got Victor Oladipo from the Pacers, Dante Exum from the Cavaliers, Rodion Kurucs from the Nets, 4 first-round picks, 3 from the Nets in 2022, 24, 26, and 1 first-round pick from the Milwaukee Bucks from Cleveland that is in 2022. So that's going to be a high first-round pick anyway because the Bucks are going to be good then, I imagine. And then 4 first round pick swaps from the Nets this year, which is negligible, doesn't really matter, but 23, 25, and 27 as well. The Pacers get Karis LeVert from the Nets and a second round pick from Houston, and the Cavaliers get Jared Allen and Taurean Prince from the Nets. Is your head still spinning?
No. So all these deals, I guess we can go team by team here. I guess we'll go through the kind of easy ones first here. I like the trade for the Cavs. I like Jared Allen a lot. I don't know what they're going to do because they have like 6 centers now. And not just 6 centers that like don't space the floor and like are just rim protecting, rebounding centers.
Yep.
And so I don't know what they're going to do with that.
I think it actually might be a little bit more simple. So I think, well, one, Andre Drummond, you either trade Drummond or you don't re-sign him in the offseason. I think that decision's easy. I imagine Drummond's not going to be in.
JaVale is a good candidate for the buyout market.
Yep. JaVale is going to be a buy. That's the thing, like, there might be a logjam at center, but Jared Allen makes Drummond expensible now, and the centers they did sign, they're not long-term pieces. Right. I think the prize here is that Jared Allen, who should have been starting over DeAndre Jordan,
and was doing really well,
was doing really well, and has been the better player for a few years. The Cavs got a great player to mold with the culture they're trying to change there. They got a really good rim protector, a rim running center, a good rebounder, and an up-and-coming shot blocker, to also pair with two guards who do their best in the pick and roll, in Darius Garland and Colin Sexton, and fits with the shifting defensive ideology that JB Bickerstaff is trying to bring. You know, they got Okoro. Larry Nance Jr. has been a really underrated defender for the Cavs. The Cavs have had a top 3 defense, by the way, for a good chunk of the season now. They were first for a minute, and they're still up there. And I just like this move for the Cavs. Taurean Prince is a wing. I don't know how long he's going to be there, but with the news that Kevin Porter Jr. is probably going to be traded or waived by the Cavs after the incident that happened with him over the weekend where he was throwing food. I don't know what it is with the Cavs and throwing food like it's recess, but
this is something I want to bring up too. I feel bad for Kevin Porter Jr. because obviously something's happening with him, and he's had issues throughout even his college career.
Yeah, going back, that's why he dropped in the draft. Right.
And so I hope he gets help, and I hope he figures it out because he's a talented player and I like him. But yeah, he's out of town.
Yeah.
So,
And so I don't know what's going to happen with the other, I guess, Kevin Porter probably would have been guard depth as he was working his way back up, because I liked him as a talent, but they're obviously moving on from him. So I don't know what Prince's future is there long term. But from the Cavs standpoint, they were like the guy who walked around on a Saturday night or a Saturday morning market in Town Square and saw some people haggling over something, and they just came in and were like, "Oh, hey, can I get a piece of that?" and then walk away from the stall. And all they had to do was give a high Bucks first round pick that is going to be in the high 20s. So I like that trade for the Cavs.
Absolutely. I think they kind of got away with the biggest steal here.
Yep. I agree.
Because again, I think both of us are very high on Jared Allen, maybe more so than the average fan.
Yeah.
But I think he's super talented and I like him a lot. I love the energy. He is almost like a very young DeAndre Jordan, but just I think he has a lot more defensive instincts.
Oh, yep. Yeah.
But yeah, otherwise,
especially at this point, he's just a better player, No,
I'm talking about like a young DeAndre Jordan. Like,
you're talking about young. Yeah, young DeAndre Jordan was raw before Doc turned him into a All NBA player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like him a lot. I think he's gonna be great there.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we'll go to the Pacers next. Pacers may out. I think Pacers come out second in this deal, where they get Karis LeVert. Obviously has an injury concern. That's not a huge deal. But they get a younger wing to build around Sabonis. I think obviously Victor Oladipo wanted out. He was going to demand a huge contract, a lot of money. He just wanted out to begin with. I don't think he wanted to play with Sabonis, given that he wants to be the guy, and it's looking more and more like Sabonis is going to be the guy.
Yeah.
And
he was already the guy to start the year.
Well, yeah.
It became, I know what you're saying though.
Like the identity of the team is shifting in a different direction away from Oladipo.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Karis LeVert fits a lot better next to Oladipo or next to Sabonis than Oladipo did.
Agreed.
Just because he's not as ball dominant. He's more of a slasher and a off-ball wing.
Yeah, the pecking order is also just well established there now. Like, it's clearly Sabonis is the guy. Karis LeVert is going to be, like you said, the slasher wing. I actually am very interested to see what actions they can run together, because I think there's some dribble handoff stuff that'll help Karis's game open up quite a bit. But Yeah.
I think if you use them like how the Heat are currently using like Tyler Hero and Bam, where they're just playing 2-man at the top of the key.
Yep.
I think Sabonis has that ability and that talent and that versatility, and I think Karis LeVert is just a better version of Tyler Hero at this
Mm.
point in their careers, where they
Yep.
can run that and be highly effective. I think we talked about this a little bit on Twitter, and I said I want to bring it up on the podcast. I think Sabonis obviously took a step this year and is a perennial All Pro, All Star, franchise level guy. I think he takes another step to being a top 20 guy. Without the Oladipo thing there, and with it's clearly his team and he can take control here. I think he has that ability, and I think he's shown it so far.
That's the thing.
And I'm very excited.
I think this year, I think Sabonis has taken the leap as a top 20, 25 guy, because last year he was an all-star and he was averaging 18 and 12 and 5 assists, and now he's taken another leap scoring. I'm still not sure about him as a three-point shooter, even though Nate Bjorken, the new head coach, wants him taking more threes. He's taken the most threes he's ever had since his rookie year in OKC, which is only 2 a game. Yeah, it's solid form, but he's still only shooting 31%, and I'm wondering how much more he has left to tap into there as a shooter. But I think he's already in the top 20, 25, especially the way he's been playing this year. He's kind of like a mini Jokic in a way, with the spots that he has, the spots that he occupies on the floor, the type of passes that he makes. They run the same dribble handoff stuff, the same high post stuff. They put him on the low block, and he is, doing the drop step and either pushing dudes around and scoring, or doing the Boris Diaw like wraparound pass down the baseline to the opposite corner. Like, they're using Sabonis in a bunch of ways that I think Oladipo saw the writing on the wall there, and there was still kind of that tug and pull as you saw them playing to start the season. Like, is it his team? Is it Oladipo's team? Also, like you said, Oladipo was up for a big contract. Karis LeVert is on a very valuable contract over the next few years at like 17, 18 million per. So it's not only a good flexible move for the Pacers long term, but it empowers Sabonis more. And like you said, I agree with you. I do think he could make another leap, possibly into the top 15 by the end of the year. This Pacers team is good, man. Like, I said on our preview podcast, that they were like a 6th seed, but with everything going on there, new coaching change, etc., I really did not think this team was going to be like in the upper echelon of the East. I think they absolutely are. The numbers have been fluctuating because it's been a weird season, but they're trying to, still figure out some stuff. TJ Warren isn't back yet, but they're hovering around the top 10 for most of the season in offense and defensive rating. And I think if you want to be a contender in the East, if you're top 10 in both of those categories, if you find yourself in the top 10 of both of those categories, then that's a pretty good starting point.
Yeah, totally agree.
Also, Miles Turner is basically just a giant ass 3-and-D wing now.
Yeah, it's really weird.
But he might be the defensive player of the year so far.
He does a great job of sliding his feet, and he has some great movement and mobility for a player his size.
Yeah, his lateral quickness has surprised me, too. Like, it's gotten better, it seems like. Because, before it was like, he stood, how long his legs are. Like, it looks always, whenever he's standing flat-footed on the perimeter, I always thought, like, it was just you just would love that matchup, but he's just locking dudes up on the perimeter and locking down the paint locking on the perimeter when he gets switched out and locking down the paint. So he's been a beast too. Pacers are a good squad.
Yep. And so now we get to sort of the meat of it. I guess we'll hit the Nets last, so we'll go to the Rockets next. I was sad because I think that the Rockets roster, if Harden was fully engaged and he was fully bought into what they're doing, I think they're a really interesting and fun roster.
Yep, agreed.
Because I think John Wall and Cousins are back to somewhat good form. They look great. They're playing great.
Christian Wood's awesome.
Christian Wood's awesome. He's playing like an all-pro.
Jason Tate, the rookie. Like
Yeah,
he's been good. Like
everyone.
the
Like
Rockets just have
the
some good players.
the rest of their team is really, really solid. The only problem that they kind of had was there was sort of a weird dynamic where when Harden was on the floor, he would still try to play the Morey ball ISO style, where that's not what they're doing this year, and it just slowed down their entire pace of the offense. Like they looked better without Harden,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think if he was fully invested and really wanted to be involved, I think that would have been
Well,
really,
you
really
saw the
cool.
Laker Rockets games, like
Yeah,
especially the second one. Like Harden quit. Like
yeah.
it was Vince Carter 2.0 again. It was like by the first 3 games of the year, Harden was averaging like 35, and everyone was like, "Oh, see, even Harden, gaining 20 pounds, he's still cooking dudes," and then he just quit.
And
And
so I think obviously Oladipo wants to trade out again. Like he doesn't want to be in Houston.
yeah, I saw reports
But
about that.
yeah, so they're probably going to look to move him again. That said, Oladipo's not the kind of guy that's going to quit. He's going to give it all he's got every time he's on the floor.
Yep,
And so I think that's going to be really interesting to watch because I think the Rockets can make a leap here to at least make the playoffs. I think they're
that's a
a
fast
solid
team
enough
if you think
roster.
about it.
Right. The team is incredible. That backcourt is incredibly fast. And then you have Christian Wood, who's faster than 90% of the bigs in the league that can just run down for layups with them. It's going to be fun to watch.
Mhm.
Uh,
And then Dante Exum, I mean that it seemed like that was a contract just to match all the other deal contracts in the trade.
he's such a weird player to me.
Yeah, and he can't stay healthy, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Rodion Kurucs is another. It's one of those prospects that draft Twitter just absolutely loves. But you see him play. Yeah, he had some flashes with the Nets whenever he did play. He's kind of a big.
He's fool's gold to me.
Yeah, like I'm not that high on Rodion's Kurucs, but it just comes down to the draft picks and the Rockets, everybody no, you'd never want to trade an MVP superstar player, right? Nobody ever wants to do that. And if you trade him, you lose that trade all the time, right? But if the situation is untenable and you have to trade him, like I don't look at it as the Rockets automatically lost the trade because they lost James Harden. I just look at it as, yeah, they lost the better player, but they had to do it. What are they going to do? Like the way DeMarcus Cousins was talking in the pre-morning session with the media after the game, after Harden's comments, that was yeah, James Harden, don't come to practice because me and John Wall will pull up on you. That's how I read it.
Well, did you see the report today that came out about the players meeting that happened, or the team meeting that happened right after that session, that media session?
No, I did not know.
Well, there's
was it on the Athletic feature?
No. Oh, actually, I'm not sure. There was a feature that came out, or like a report that came out earlier today, that the Rockets had a meeting either right after that game or right the morning before all this stuff, all the trade happened, where Steven Silas basically said like, "Hey, unfiltered, does anyone have any thoughts about this? Like, no judgment, no anything, just speak your mind." And so Wall and Cousins both called out Harden of like, "We're tired of this. Like, what are you doing here? Like, what is your intention? Like, are you committed? Whatever." And so just kind of called him out on the entire thing, and that's what kind of triggered the deal to make them go, okay,
that sounds about right. I've been wondering the whole time this was happening. I know John Wall, like, he tried to say some stuff like, yeah, me and Harden we're on the same page before the season started. He was like, yeah, me and Harden we're on the same page, blah blah blah. And it's like, no, he's not really on the same page. He's just saying that. But I was wondering the whole time what DeMarcus Cousins thought, because he doesn't hold back. And DeMarcus Cousins is as real as they get. So hearing those comments the other day, I was like, yeah, because before DeMarcus's comments, there was that report where it was like Steven Silas told Harden not to show up to practice. And then Boogie came out and said what he said. It was like, oh, that's why he's not coming to practice.
Yeah, so here's the report. Yeah, so it is the Athletic report, Sam Amick report. So it says, quote, "The group was fed up with the antics, tired of the headlines, constant question about Harden's state of mind and where this was all going. And with every day Harden remained in Houston, his presence became increasingly burdensome for the team, and they just wanted a sense of clarity and understanding. During the meeting that was led by Silas, which sealed his decision to keep Harden out of subsequent team activities until the trade was completed, sources say multiple teammates expressed displeasure with Harden's recent body language and effort. Silas asked anyone if they wanted to share their unfiltered views, and the dialogue about the dysfunction began from there. John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins both spoke during the meeting, sources say, seeking direct response from Harden's level of commitment and preaching the importance of accountability. For those who had been with the Rockets since back with Westbrook, when Westbrook preached the same message to anyone that would listen, these uncomfortable dynamics were all too familiar and weren't surprising.
Damn.
So, yeah, that's pretty damning. And I think it became kind of a meme for a while of like, hey, there was Dwight, there was Chris Paul, there was Westbrook. Who's really the problem in Houston? That was like kind of the meme for a while, and like something that would go around Reddit and Twitter, and like kind of true.
It's for good reason. Like,
right.
Like, I'm all for player empowerment, right? And this is the thing, especially I find with people more in our age group, even though we're on the higher end of the age in terms of millenniums. I'm sorry. I'm going to do that to both of us. Dragging you down with me. No. But there's a lot of, there's always this rush to defend guys like Harden or Kyrie whenever stuff like this happens. And it's like, I get it. There is definitely a generational gap still with the media and how they cover today's athlete, that they are just missing stuff that they just don't get about today's player. But we also still have to look at it from the other side of like, Harden has had everything given to him in Houston. Whatever he has asked for, they have given it to him. Which, is not...
They treated him better than most franchises have treated star players.
And that's the thing, like, star treatment and capitulation isn't an unfamiliar thing in this league, right? But if you're the star and you're asking for this stuff, you have to be accountable and, take the hits when they don't go your way. As much as you want to, take everything else that comes with things going your way. And so, yeah, Harden wanted Dwight out after Dwight signed in free agency. He wanted Chris Paul. Chris Paul comes in. It barely year 2 was the last year. In year 2, we were already hearing stuff about how these two didn't like each other. Boom, gone next year. Then he brings in Westbrook, his best friend, his friend from LA, his former teammate in Oklahoma City, close friends for a long time. Westbrook is looking around just like, this isn't the culture that I was used to in OKC, and and him and Harden obviously didn't see eye to eye, and Harden was like, okay, let's get Westbrook out, and Westbrook probably wanted out too, if we're being honest. So Harden has had everything built towards him, and he still couldn't get it done. Now, do I look at his Houston era as a failure? No, I don't look at it as a complete failure. Failure in that they didn't win the big one. But we can't completely absolve Harden from this because he brought a lot of this on himself too. And, we have to acknowledge that.
And I think it's about accountability, right? Like if we're going to get on franchises for trading, if we're going to get on the Celtics for trading Isaiah Thomas, or if we're going to jump on, all these teams for not being loyal and all that stuff, we got to jump on Harden too for everything that he's doing here. And I think just accountability and like they've done everything in their power to put him in a place to succeed and make sure the team's successful. And he just kind of, and it's not like they were bad last year, and it's not like they didn't try to make moves this year to like make this team better.
And I want to be clear, if he wants a trade, I'm fine with him asking for a trade. It's just the way he's saying it,
and the way he went about it.
It's like not breaking health protocol. First of all, showing up to parties, giving little baby a $100,000 birthday present, which damn, that's some friends in high places. But showing up when you're supposed to be in training camp, and then you show up out of shape, like laughably,
out of shape, like
laughably,
really badly out of shape,
like laughably out of shape, and he even said, like, I did some things that were out of character. And I'm just like, I don't know. Like, I kind of felt like all this was coming. Character. Like, I felt like all of this that happened did not surprise me. I was like, when Harden eventually gets unhappy and asks for a trade, and you told me this was how it's going to pan out, I would have been like, okay, yeah, that sounds about right. So,
well, obviously, too, it comes down to even the style of basketball that they played. It's really hard if you're a teammate of James Harden. It's really hard to watch a guy dribble for 20 seconds of the shot clock and throw up a shot.
Yeah.
Like it's not fun to like. It works and it's successful or whatever, but as a basketball player, me and you both play basketball. It's not fun.
No, it's not.
And
it's like watching, like I remember I was playing my first semester in the 4-year college that I transferred to out of community college. I played intramurals my first semester. One of my fraternity brothers asked me to join the squad, and I was like, "Oh yeah, sure. I'm down to hoop with my fraternity brothers, you know?" Like, and so they brought on this one dude who had played in other leagues before, but he literally thought he was Allen Iverson and James Harden rolled into one. And he would not pass the ball. He would take these crazy shots, and teammates would get pissed, like in the huddle. And we would go up to our frat brother who was the captain, and we'd be like, dude, this guy's not passing the ball. Like, I'm not saying I'm going to make a shot or something, but can we move the ball or something?
Right.
And so then, without being mean, my friend was like, hey, the next game, my friend was like, hey, we're going to try something new. We're going to have you come off the bench. And then I was like, oh God, we're doing this. And then the next game, the ball hog guy, he couldn't make it. And so we were all just like, oh, hell yeah. And so then we played without this ball hog. And we were moving the ball like they were kicking
like the Spurs.
Yeah, we were dumping it to me in the post, and I would pass it out. You get the ball out, moving around the perimeter, and we still hadn't won a game to that point, but that was the damn closest we have ever gotten to winning a game. We played a bunch of good teams. We won like 1 game or 2 games out of like 10, but we were not close with this ball hog guy. But when he wasn't there, my God, we had a way better shot. So it's kind of James Harden is that guy on a way better level.
Right. And again, winning and success and all this stuff, and he's so talented. But the thing is, again, it's just not fun. And it's hard to play with that kind of guy for a long time. And so I completely understand the teammates' frustration with the way he played. I understand why people, when they get there, don't like. You think it's like the guy that beats his wife, right? She's like, oh, he'll change. He's better now. He understands his mistakes. It's like, no, dude, he's just gonna.
No, the dude was a piece of shit.
Yeah, like he's just gonna beat you again. Like this is just how Harden has been empowered to play, and obviously, I think getting to kind of the net situation. I don't know how long this pass happy Harden is going to stay. I think that this first game was like a hey, look, I can pass. Hey, look, I can play make and I can be this guy. I don't know how long that stays for. I don't know how long that honeymoon period lasts. And if they start to lose, I don't know how long that sits.
Right.
And then also when Kyrie comes back, that adds a whole new element to it as well. If he comes back, right? I don't know where we're at there.
Yeah, so it seems like he might be questionable for let me see. Let me pull up. This is great podcasting. For Wednesday's game against the Cavaliers.
So this comes into the thing too of everything that we just said about Harden. I also want to say, for me at least, goes true for Kyrie as well. Where I completely understand you don't want to play, you have personal issues, whatever it is, but when you sign that contract, you have an obligation to talk to the media. You have an obligation to show up to practices and show up to games and play your game for your teammates, for your team, for whatever you're doing. And like, not cool the way that he's going about a lot of the stuff here. And I completely understand, like, hey, he doesn't want to talk to the media, whatever. Part of your job,
even
man.
if it's personal reasons, at least let the team know why you dipped first.
There's a lot of, dude, I gotta call in sick to work. I gotta tell people why I'm not showing up to work. Hey, there's a lot of shit at work I don't want to do, but I gotta do it because it's part of my job.
Yeah.
And so when you are, I feel like, yeah, you don't want to talk to the media because they take things out of proportion, whatever it is. Dude, you still gotta talk to the media. It's still part of your job.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And,
I agree.
And when you don't show up, you gotta let them know why.
And even if you don't want to give them an answer that you're afraid they might take out of context, you could still do just the Marshawn Lynch, which I don't even have a problem with. Like,
no, dude,
at all.
But you have to at least make yourself available.
Yeah.
And I think putting not showing up to media availability and then putting out a statement afterwards of like why, to me is just like,
well, I think at this point too, like Kyrie is at the point of no return where anything he does now
absolutely
is going to be scrutinized. So
but
I don't know.
He put it on himself.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of it he put on himself, and that's what I'm saying. So like before the season, right? He started this all off rip by releasing a statement saying I'm not going to talk to the media on media day, and it's like, okay, you say you want to focus on basketball, you don't want to bring attention to yourself. You're Kyrie Irving. Like, you have brought a lot of stuff on yourself to where people want to cover you with an extra 500 set of eyes now. And when you do something like that, they're going to talk about that. As much as we don't want to talk about you talking to the media, you releasing a statement, which, you know, I don't remember any player in recent memory doing that on a media day. Like, hey, this is my statement, not going to talk to the media, but I'm going to give you a written statement about how I'm ready for the season. They're not going to, that's not going to fly past them, especially New York media. So absolutely. It's just stuff like that. Like anything he does now, he brings it on himself. So I would think it would benefit him to at least, if he's going to miss games for personal reasons, let Steve Nash know. So Steve Nash doesn't tell The Athletic that he had no idea Irving was going to leave for personal reasons. You know, take care of that stuff with your teammates internally first.
Even if it's personal, you owe it to your teammates and your team and your organization to let them know.
Yeah.
And just say, hey, keep it private. And they will, and if they're good or trust your organization, to say, hey, we understand the reason why, it's totally fine, but we're keeping it internal for now.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, right?
And then you have to know, if you're going, even if the party you went to was your family's birthday or whatever, you have to know people are going to record you and this is going to come out and it's going to look bad. The optics of you missing games for personal reasons, and then pictures of you surfacing at a party, pictures of you surfacing on a Zoom meeting, which was a very legitimate, like, the Zoom meeting that, like, it was about, you know, racial topics and social justice and stuff, which is all right, cool, but also your team is playing a game right now and a picture of you surfaced at a place where you shouldn't be, or a place that's not at the game, and you're supposed to be missing the game for personal reasons. Just optics, the optics of all of it looks bad too, and that matters, you know?
Yeah, and so again, I don't want this to make it sound like we're trashing on Kyrie, because we're not. It's I
love Kyrie, love James Harden as basketball players, but some of the stuff they're doing is like, come on.
It just comes down to accountability, and it comes down to being a professional, and it comes down to, and I think that's something that LeBron kind of has talked about when he's talked about Kyrie and what he's tried to teach Kyrie. And it's like, dude, it's just accountability to your sport, to your teammates, to your organization, and like a certain level of respect. And I think it comes down to a lot of like, it comes down to entitlement, right? And it comes down to like, I don't need to do this because I am who I am. And and even if it's not how they're personally feeling, that's how it comes across, right?
Yeah. And I'm not all about, because I think there is like old school media and stuff like that. They like to, those are like the dog whistle or trump cards, right? That they like to use. It's like, oh, be more professional, entitlement, and all that stuff. And I don't like to use those words too much, because I do think,
I think it's tricky. I think
it's a slippery slope. But I think in these two cases, it's like, it's okay to wonder, like, what the fuck are these guys doing right now? You know,
or like just what's important to you.
Yeah, exactly.
And again, it's totally fine. And it kind of goes to the thing that Stephen A. Smith went really far and like really drastic with it. But like the thing was, if basketball is not important to you, or if that's not your number one priority, that's okay. Like you can live your life and you can be a person and not have basketball be your number one focus. Like not everyone has that. That's totally fine.
Yep.
But you also have to make that very clear to your team, because your team is expecting you to come up and show up to your job, and your teammates, and
it's not fair, you know?
Right. Absolutely not.
And but basketball, if we could go to the basketball part of this.
Yeah, sorry, I went like a weird tangent.
I know we went on. No, it's fine. I am all for all conversations on the BOB, but on the basketball side of it, The personalities are obviously, it's going to be an interesting mix.
I feel bad for KD, man.
Well, I do. Well, he's playing with his friends, so I don't feel that bad for him. I think he's one of the most, I think Zach Lowe called him the most malleable superstar ever. And I think he'll fit wherever he can in the Harden Kyrie thing. I think he's just going to drop 28, 5 and 5 in his sleep because he's Kevin Durant. But I don't know. Harden is an intelligent enough player to me to where I think he will adjust his style a little bit. Obviously, 8 years of, turning into this wonder with the ball in his hands, this one-man offense with the ball in his hands. Obviously, there's going to be some stuff that's tough to break, but he's obviously a high IQ enough basketball player. He's led the league in assists once. He's always been a high assist guy. I think he knows now that he can pick his spots better, and maybe the 2 or 3 bad shots a game that he takes stepping back from 3 or whatever, even though you want Harden taking step back threes, maybe 2 of those shots get repurposed into, like, there is some stuff the Nets were running over the weekend against the Magic where I was like, oh my God, like, Harden is replacing Karis LeVert in this part of the play. And it's like, okay, this makes a lot of sense, right? And you could see how Harden might adjust, but who knows? It might be a honeymoon period. My thing is, I know everybody wants to try to be all declarative and final with their statements about, like, the Nets got Harden and that's all that matters. The Nets should be the surefire favorites to come out of the East. I don't know why people are questioning if this will work or not. It's not about questioning if the big 3 will work. And I wish, this is the part of basketball conversation on Twitter that I hate, is that everybody's just, one, they're on they plant their flag, and 2, there's not enough characters in 280 characters to have a nuanced discussion if people disagree, right? But
sure,
I think the Nets are favorites to come out of the East. I'm not big on the gap as everybody else is, because
no,
I'm sorry, but
either.
Defense still has to matter. Like, and also with the big 3 of, like, the Warriors, or the big 4, or the big 3 pre-KD, or the big 3 with the Heat, or the big 3 with the Celtics, those guys were all in some way, shape, or form anywhere from average to elite on defense. And we have James Harden, who is good in the post and could, if he was engaged for half the game on defense, he would probably be somewhere in the realm of an average defender, right? Because he's smart. He can play the passing lanes.
Right.
He can read off-ball stuff when he actually gives a shit about helping on the weak side, right? Kyrie, he'll try, but he's a small guy. He'll get punished, whatever. That's why
on the effort level, right?
It does.
Like,
but even with the effort level, I think the Nets are still an below average defensive team at best. They're going to have to rely on a lot of small ball Jeff Green at center now, and DeAndre Jordan is starting.
Yeah,
and it's
so,
like
that's kind of the thing that I was getting to with them, because the conversation shifted right away to, like, they're the favorites now to win. And I was like, dude, who's going to guard Giannis? Who's going to guard Embiid? Who's going to, like, you know what I mean? And you just kind of go down the line of, like, guys that they may have to go up against, and you're like, I don't know how they're going to guard anyone.
By the way, me and you were saying this pre-Harden trade.
Yeah. Well, last week's topic was the Nets' problem with rim protection.
Yeah.
We talked about their issues at rim protection, and we're like, well, at least they have Jarrett Allen. Now they don't have Jarrett Allen. Dude,
okay, so the Nets played, Harden made his debut against the Magic over the weekend. The Magic, once again, par for the course, have the 25th worst offensive rating in basketball per cleaning the glass. They average 105.8 points per 100 possessions. The Nets allowed the Magic to score 115 points in a 4-quarter game. This is how the Nets are going to be winning their games, by the way. A good chunk of them. They're going to be outscoring people. But they're allowing
them too. When you watch that game, I think I'm higher on Nikola Vucevic than you are. I really like Nikola Vucevic.
I do as a player. I just question, is he actually somebody to build around? That's all.
Sure. But, dude, he was eaten up.
Yeah.
He's and you're like, I like Nikola Vucevic, but there is no way he should be able to do
30,
the things
34,
he's doing.
34, 10 rebounds and 7 assists. Vucevic was killing the Nets. He was killing them. And
Well, who's going to guard him?
Exactly. And now you're going to, and look, everybody was all fascinated by the Nets' depth. Like, if you look at it, like, Landry Shamet, like, he's a good shooter, but he's kind of been stagnant he's been stagnant and injured the last season and a half. There's a lot of Chris Chiozza minutes now. There is also, like I said, you're relying on Jeff Green, and now Jeff Green becomes an important part of your rotation because you're asking him to be a small ball 4 or a 5. And also, while Kevin Durant looks like, pre-Achilles Kevin Durant, he still lost a little bit of a step, but you're asking somebody coming off of Achilles surgery all of a sudden now to defend a lot of 4s and 5s than he was initially probably expected to do.
And someone that has had issues strength-wise his whole career anyway.
Yeah.
And tends to get bullied and bodied by bigger guys anyway.
Yep.
And the thing is, I made the joke earlier that the Nets should go all in and trade for Enes Kanter anyway, just to go all in on the offensive only thing. At
least Ennis will get you some offensive rebounds.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you might as well just trade for Enes Kanter just to go. Might as well, if you're gonna go all in on offense like this, you might as well go all in and just trade for Enes Kanter.
Yeah, he'll provide some.
It's like Jahlil Okafor, right?
Yeah,
like, just go all in.
Like, at least Kanter will provide something DeAndre Jordan doesn't. Like.
Yeah.
So.
I don't know where they're going to go with, like, obviously they're going to watch the buyout market. And I think if they get like a JaVale McGee, that's absolutely huge for them.
That's
right?
essential.
Right. And so, but the thing is, like, I could see a world where like JaVale goes back to the Lakers because the Lakers have the need for
they have a vertical rim protection like thing that's lacking there.
But the thing is, like, their rim protection numbers are actually better than they were last year, surprisingly. Whatever, we can talk about that later. But the issue with the Nets is, like, okay, if to get through the East, you have to get through Embiid and Giannis, and I don't know if they can do that. And even like Vucevic, they're gonna struggle against Vucevic in the playoffs if they run into the Magic on the first round.
Yeah, Vucevic is gonna have like a huge first round series that'll
like Sabonis, right? Like they're gonna run
Sabonis too.
Like all these guys are
Bam Adebayo.
Where Bam is in there as well, of like guys that are big,
that are versatile as hell and can do a lot of things on the floor.
And they're gonna play guys like DeAndre Jordan off the floor, and then you're relying on Jeff Green to defend in a worse PJ Tucker way because. As Jeff Green is versatile and athletic, he doesn't have the size that PJ Tucker has to body down low. The issue that you're going to have too, then if they make it to the finals, right? After they go through this, after Jeff Green gets bodied and beaten to black and blue in the East, then you're either going to have to go against Anthony Davis or Jokic or like what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. It's
after you go through the gauntlet in the East with those bigs, you have in the finals, Anthony Davis or Jokic or something else like that, or DeAndre Ayton. Maybe
and like I said, with this big three, I would like a little more two-wayness. The only guy who's really who you could say has had a track record of being an elite two-way player is Durant. And even then, I don't know how often that'll come out of him, at this stage, given the Achilles. And so it's like, yeah, the big they're going to be incredible offensively. It's already incredible offensively, and they still haven't played together. And Kyrie's not back, but that's going to be the way the Nets are going to do things. And look, if that works,
the thing that worries me too. I love that Joe Harris is still there, and I love that he's going to provide so much.
Joe Harris has never seen so many wide open threes in his life than he has so far this season.
But it is going to make it really hard to play a team with a lot of defensive versatility. Like if you play the Clippers or if you play the Lakers, they're gonna they're gonna score and they're gonna have great numbers, but you're still playing 3-on-5 pretty much, and it's still going to be really difficult to consistently score, especially when you're giving up the amount of points they're going to be giving up on the other end of the floor. When you start to play these top echelon teams like the Bucks or like the Lakers or the Clippers or even the Celtics, teams that have great defensive rotations and are able to scheme, they're not going to be able to match up because obviously there's no team in the league that can match up one-on-one with the Nets.
I still can't believe the Magic with no Markelle Fultz or Evan Fournier and only having, basically 9 guys in the rotation scored 115 points against a supposed title contender. And they are a title contender, to be clear. The degree, though, I still think the East is wide open because of the Nets' glaring flaws. They might have better talent than, the rest of the East, but the Nets' glaring flaws to me still makes this race in the East a wide open one,
Mm-hmm. Totally agree.
So, we spent about 40. Wow, we went 45 minutes breaking down this trade, which is,
it's pretty much the biggest.
It's
thing
pretty much
happened.
the biggest thing. Yeah. No, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. But do we? I'm just wondering, while we still have time, what are some of your? I know you had some side grievances or side thoughts you wanted to get off your chest.
Interesting topics here. Some more lighthearted, fun ones. Did you see this NBA team franchise valuation report?
No, I did not.
So Sportico is obviously a firm or kind of reporting company that did some evaluations on NBA franchises. Do you want to guess the top 3 since you haven't seen this? So there's a huge gap between the top 3 valuation teams valued in the league versus the rest of the league. Like a $2 billion.
Oh, value. Okay, so I'd guess the top 3 would be the Lakers, the Knicks,
okay,
and the third team, the Warriors.
Yeah. So those are by far. Do you know what number 1 is?
The Knicks.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
their
that doesn't surprise me.
valuation is at $5.42 billion. Warriors come in second at 5.2. So
Makes sense.
$200 million difference there. Lakers are at 5.1 and probably climbing given their resurgence back up. And then the number 4 is the Brooklyn Nets at $3.4 billion.
Wow, so, that's a near $2 billion gap.
Yeah, so gigantic gap there. Obviously, major markets, California,
New York. Yep.
So then we have Boston, the Bulls, the Boston Celtics, and the Bulls at 3.18 and 3.14 respectively, and then it drops down to Houston at 2.77, and then from there it kind of trails as you would think it would. But yeah, the huge gap between the top 3 and the rest of the league was pretty telling to me.
Yeah, the next one doesn't surprise me. There's still the mystique of going to Madison Square Garden and players players who travel on the road who want to play in MSG to put on a show. And even though there's been no fans this year, but just over the last few years, speaking, and it's New York, and then Warriors, the team of the decade, pretty much, and then Lakers are probably gonna retake that spot in the next few years because 1, LeBron, and 2, it's the Lakers, and they're back to NBA royalty, right. So
I mean, to be fair, the Lakers are probably the most successful NBA franchise of all time
ever.
Anyway,
yeah,
ever, yeah. So it's not like I expected them to be up there. I expected the Warriors, given their level of success.
Wait! That sound you heard was like a 1 million Celtics fans screaming from the distance.
Okay, have I given my Celtics argument before?
No, but I love Celtics slander, so let's get it out here right now.
Bill Simmons always brings up the Minneapolis championships, right? And
yep.
I'm with him there of just like, if you're gonna accept the Minneapolis championships, you have to retire Mikan's number. So I'm still confused as to why Mikan is not retired, or why Mikan's number is not retired. But that's neither here or there. My thing is that the Celtics championships, when you count all 17, I don't take anything away from them, but I value more winning championships across every single decade and a level of success across every single decade rather than 10 championships in the 60s.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
10 championships in the 60s and then 3 or 4 in the 80s and then that's about it. Where the Lakers, you have championships in every single decade, and dynasties in almost every single decade.
Let's see, the 60s, right?
Is it the 60s?
No,
or
I think
50s?
no. I'm talking about the Lakers.
Oh,
So I'm thinking of all the decades they've won, right?
so they've won. They won one in the 60s with Wilt and
Jerry West and Elgin.
Jerry West. That was the year.
No,
Elgin
that was
retired.
that's
Elgin
right.
retired, but then he played, I think, one playoff game. He came back out of retirement to play one playoff game, so it counts technically. But I feel so bad for Elgin because he retired that year and then they finally won.
Yeah.
But so there's that year they won in the. Oh, they didn't win the 70s. They won in the 80s, of course. Then they won in the 90s, 2000s with Shaq, Kobe, and then you won the Kobe Gasol championships in the 2010s, and then now you've won 2020 in LeBron.
Yeah, and they've
and a level of success too, because like remember, there's a lot of Celtics down years. Really, the only Lakers down years has been this last decade with between the Kobe LeBron years.
And kind of that midway in the 90s after Magic, in the early 90s after Magic.
But see, they were still making the playoffs. Like they're still making the playoffs, and they're still doing decently. Where there's Celtics years where you're just like, wow.
Yeah, there's Celtics years where they were.
There's the Antoine Walker years. Okay.
Yeah, there was and also there was that one Celtics year. I think it was 2005 or 4 where they set the record for like most games lost in a row.
Was that the Antoine? Was that the?
No, that was
Walker.
That was it was
Telfair years.
It was well past. Yeah, I think it was it was when Paul. It was basically just Paul Pierce and a bunch of scrubs. It was yeah.
Dude, I just remember them getting Sebastian Telfair, and then my Celtics friends telling me that Sebastian Telfair was gonna take the jump.
Dude, the future.
And I was like,
yeah.
I was like, nah, dude. Sebastian Telfair can't make a layup. You're good.
But no, yeah, I could see from your perspective. Yeah, I could absolutely see that. And
again, I think Celtics fans have obviously an argument of their own, and like I respect that argument. I just have the take of like the sustained level of success for the Lakers is to me more valuable than the dominance of.
I mean, I don't want to disrespect Bill Russell, but as I've gotten older and have changed my thought process some ways about how I think about basketball and basketball historically. Like I just find myself moving Bill Russell further and further back in my top 10 and top 15 ever, just because of the era he played in. And I don't want to ever discredit players for the era they played in, but there was 8 teams when he played. He was clearly it was a league where it was full. The league wasn't black yet, and it was the 60s. And there was 8 teams. Players were smoking cigarettes at halftime, and I just can't get over the fact. I don't know who did it, but I saw an article a few years ago. It hasn't really been done since, and Ben Dietrich of Cookies Hoops, he'll show that article every once in a while. But they did a thing where they took great players from yesteryear, and they would use a formula to like calculate how their stats would look today. And Wilt Chamberlain, monster, of course. 25 and 12 was like the number he came out as if you took his averages. Bill Russell was like 13 and 6 or something like that with like 46% shooting. That is like literally one of the worst players in the league today. Like we would be making Twitter jokes we would be high factory level production Twitter jokes for a prominent player getting minutes like that.
Obviously, like to me, the biggest thing, if anyone is watching this and isn't subscribed to Thinking Basketball, go do that right now. So there's Thinking Basketball is one of my favorite basketball analysts.
Oh, it was his greatest peaks, right? He did the Bill Russell video.
So he's doing
Russell versus Chamberlain.
He's doing a series right now called Greatest Peaks, where he kind of goes through NBA history and talks about players' greatest peaks and sort of their impact on the game in their respective eras. So today's episode was on Shaq. Great. He's going through all of the greatest players of all time. So we went through, before that it was Hakeem, David Robinson. They obviously did Magic, Bird,
Michael Jordan.
And then the first 2 episodes were on Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain. Some great analysis there, some great stuff there. Obviously, Bill's biggest impact came on the defensive end. It's just hard to measure defensive impact because there's not a lot of film there, and there's not a lot of. We're just purely going on numbers, and it's hard to really understand
even in the modern league today, defensive
right.
numbers are hard to
they're
contextualize.
really hard to understand. You really have to watch players, and so given the footage back then, and especially we're only getting snippets, it's even hard to watch like a player with a lot of footage, like a player with a lot of footage that I love Bill. I'm a big Bill Walton guy. I don't know if you are.
And I like Bill Walton. Yeah, one of the best passers ever, passing bigs ever.
Also one of the greatest defensive bigs ever. Absolutely. And so he also did an episode on Bill Walton, and so
I watched. That's one of my. I love that episode a lot.
It's hard to even find good footage of Bill Walton full games of defensive of Bill Walton to watch defensively, and so it's hard to gauge players like that, their defensive impact. And so I totally see where people put Bill Russell on this pedestal. I just think it's a little too high, but I also don't want to put him too low, which is that's the void I find myself in. It's like, yes, I know, because also it'd be kind of contradicting myself, right? Because I do respect what players have done for the league at that point in time in that history, absolutely. Right? But the more you look at it, you're gonna if you're from this perspective, if you, Chris, walked up to me and opened your hands and a prime Bill Russell came out of your left hand and a prime Kevin Durant came out of your right hand, and you told me which player do you want to build around right now, you're in charge of everything as the GM, I'm taking Kevin Durant without a second thought. Yeah.
100 times out of 110 times out of 100, I'm taking Kevin Durant. And but obviously, if you're talking about career, Bill Russell has championships, but it's that struggle I'm always dealing with when trying to rank a guy like Russell, because it's he's had a better career than a lot of dudes, but there's also a lot of dudes I would take over him if I were to build a team.
So to bring in another argument, and I don't know where you stand on this one, so I may hit a nerve here, but I'm also not a Tom Brady guy, and I it's the same argument that I have all the time with people when talking about Brady and quarterbacks, where to me Tom Brady is the most accomplished quarterback of all time. I have no problem saying that he is the most accomplished, resume-wise, greatest of all time quarterback. But if I'm picking a team to build around, and if I get to pick any quarterback in the history of the NFL and their prime and build around them in the perfect way, in the way that I want to build around them, and I think the way they're going to function best, I'm not taking Tom Brady.
Yeah, you're taking Patrick Mahomes. Or
I'm taking Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers or even John Elway. Or Dan Marino.
So
I'm taking players that I understand, in my opinion, have a stronger overall skill set. And obviously, you can't judge a player by the intangibles, right? The leadership, the X factor, whatever you want to call it. And I think that's where, when you talk about Bill Russell people, that's where a lot of Bill Russell people get into the minutia of it, of the leadership and the way he led a team and his defensive instincts and all that kind of stuff, where it's okay, you can't really gauge that, and it's really hard to gauge that. But to me, it's the eye test of when you watch a player and you see the player do stuff, are you telling me that is your greatest player of all time?
Yeah.
Or you're putting them your argument, if you show me film of Bill Russell and you show me film of Kevin Durant, I'm taking Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
But if you showed me the resume, then I'm if you don't show me film, you just show me the piece of paper with hey, here's all their accomplishments. Yeah, okay, Bill Russell.
So my argument for Brady, and you're talking to somebody who's a third generation Niner fan, and my dad's side of the family is a hardcore 49er fan. We've had season tickets at Candlestick since the 70s. I had been going to games since I was 6 or 7 years old. As somebody who has argued with his dad a lot, because I think Tom Brady I used to think Tom Brady was the greatest quarterback of all time over Joe Montana. I think it's more the combination of Brady might not be as talented as Mahomes and Rodgers, but he was still elite talent-wise, especially at his peak when he was winning MVPs. So it was a combination of the resume and the talent. While he might
Right.
not necessarily be in the same stratosphere as those two, but I said it, I said it as this season was going on, and I've told my friends this. I don't care if I'm wrong. I'm right. Patrick Mahomes is the greatest quarterback I have ever seen in my life.
Just
I don't care if
talent-wise, I don't
like.
So I was asking my dad this, and it's pretty funny that we had this conversation. At this point in his career, if Mahomes had some kind of catastrophic injury or passed away in an accident or something happened to Patrick Mahomes, he gets to, in my opinion, he gets the Gale Sayers treatment of getting into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, he's a Hall of Famer already.
So for anyone that doesn't know who Gale Sayers is, Gale Sayers was a running back for the Chicago Bears, and he was one of the greatest players of all time. Set records upon records. One of the most spectacular. Just go watch Gale Sayers highlights. Gale Sayers is incredible, and he had a catastrophic knee injury before there was surgical help to repair him, and so he was never able to come back and play. And so he only played, I think, 4 or 5 years in the NFL. But he makes the Hall of Fame just purely based on the brilliance of the short career that he had.
Yep, he played 5 full seasons.
Right. And so to me, if Mahomes never plays another game, he to me is a Hall of Famer.
Absolutely. Like I like how we turned into a football podcast all of a sudden, but
but I mean, it goes into the argument, right?
Yeah, no, yeah, but tangentially connecting it to basketball, Patrick Mahomes is like the closest thing I've seen to a basketball player on the football field, because like it's the most quarterback I think is the most important position in sports, but there's still 11 on 11. There's a lot of things that have to go right. Everybody has to do their assignment right. It's like a huge chain, right? Where if one person fucks up, then it could mess the whole operation up. And you got more players to where there's a chance that could happen. Patrick Mahomes controls the game like he's a basketball player. Just, he can step up in the pocket, he can run around, and he has this stupid arm where he could just launch it 60 yards or change the arm angle and throw it sidearmed with velocity and accuracy. And I don't want to bore anybody with all the minutia of throwing a damn ball, but this dude is the best I've seen throwing the ball, and not named Aaron Rodgers. And I think Rodgers and Mahomes, there's
quickly approaching Rodgers.
There's some things Roger does with his throwing ability that I'm like, I've never seen anybody do that. And Mahomes has some things that Rodgers can't do, vice versa. And those two are just, they're insane. But Patrick Mahomes, man, like he's literally Steph Curry. Like everybody throws the Steph comparison around with good reason. Like this dude is a supernova, and defenses are just keyed in on him. But yeah, going all the way back to our first original topic, like, yeah, I think now more than ever, I'm looking at, greatness from different perspectives. So it's like the GM thing, for example, or like what Ben Taylor does is who had the greatest peaks, like 2-3 year stretches, or who had the greatest career. Or you could try to do the impossible thing we all try to do, and while we all have talk shows like this, is we try to combine all three and then try to, make stuff up as we go.
Right. So like that's kind of where I classify things, where to me, when I consider greatest of all time, I do consider greatest players within their era, and like that's I don't try to make them against each other, because like the thing is, if you're going over, I had this discussion with someone about League of Legends the other day. There was a poll going around, an ESPN poll, and we were talking about League of Legends players that were kind of the top 3 League of Legends players of all time. And so the thing is, I always go back to this podcast that Gary Kasparov did. Gary Kasparov is probably one of the greatest chess players of all time. And so he was talking about Magnus Carlsen, who is currently the number 1 rated chess player in the world. Again, one of the, in my opinion, being a chess fan, the Magnus Carlsen's the greatest chess player of all time, in my opinion. But
I didn't know you were a chess guy.
Yeah. So besides the point, so Kasparov goes into this argument, or the whoever was hosting the podcast asked Kasparov who is the GOAT chess player, and whether or not he puts himself ahead of Magnus, and what, where they all rank. And so Kasparov kind of puts it in perspective this way, where he's saying that it's hard to mix eras because given the idea that the previous era learns and grows from the previous one.
Yeah.
So the idea that Magnus at age 20, that Kasparov himself at age 20 knows less about chess than Magnus does at age 20. And so it's hard to like compare the two because the passage of time and the transfer of knowledge and how much, is better about the game.
Mm.
And so that kind of goes for basketball too, where yes, Jerry West is one of the greatest guards and shooters of all time. At this point, I don't know if he could play. Like, I don't know if you take Jerry West. Obviously, if you take Jerry West, make him born now, and he goes through the whole training process of what an NBA player would now, yes, he's still a great player. But I think that if you take 1960s Jerry West and plop him today and have him play one-on-one, he'd lose against a lot of guards.
Yeah.
In the league.
And
so it's hard to compare in that way where you're like, okay, I don't know. Like, obviously these players are talented. So if you put them in this era, yeah. But if you just drag and drop players, it doesn't work in that same way. And so it's hard to compare them skill for skill wise. You have to really take in context where, like, what is them versus their contemporaries and their peers. And so that's what Kasparov's argument was. Kasparov's argument when you bring in the GOAT conversation is you don't compare them versus one another. You compare them between their gaps between them and their peers. Right. How big was the gap between them and their contemporaries, and how much better were they at their time than everyone else?
Yeah, that's the other. Yeah, that was the other method. I've heard Bill Simmons use this argument before because now that the LeBron GOAT talks are getting louder and louder, he's trying to find him and other Jordan people are trying to find new ways to kind of,
change. Yeah.
Stop that talk and try to keep Michael up top. It's how better was Michael or whoever in that era at their peak, how better was he than all of his peers? And early 90s Mike was clearly, there was like a consensus, like this guy is clearly the best player in the world. And then I think when he came back for the second three-peat, Bill Costas and Dan Patrick and a few others who were covering Michael during that whole run, they were saying, in the early 90s, Michael Jordan was the best player of all time. But this version of Michael Jordan, the second three-peat Michael Jordan, is the best player in the world. And so, it's stuff like that. Like how much, like, this is why LeBron's run has been so impressive. He's been the best player in the world for pretty much the decade. And even if there was a 2 or 3 regular seasons where you would say, okay, maybe Steph Curry was better than him in the regular season that year, or Kevin Durant's 2014 MVP season, you would, deep down in your heart, you're taking LeBron at the end of the day. And so, the GOAT conversation is always going to be interesting. It's always going to be ever evolving. I'm not one of those fuddy-duddies who tries to be like, let's just enjoy the players that we have in front of us while we can. Why do we always have to? What? They're like, no, we're talking hoops, man. This isn't like if you can't handle like disagreeing about GOAT talk or whatever, like you weren't talking with your friends at the lunch table every day in high school then. Like I can tell.
Absolutely not. And the thing is, like, obviously there's a difference between people that have dumb arguments and like people that have smart, nuanced discussions, right?
Yeah.
There's a difference where, like, that's kind of like when we first started talking that one night we met. And I was like, yeah, this is like, these are nuanced discussions that I had. That's why we started the podcast, because we had a lot of fun having that discussion. And so, these are conversations that if you don't enjoy having these conversations, I don't know what you're doing. Me and my friend, we would argue back in high school who was better, Allen Iverson or Steve Nash, and we'd argue about it, and we would disagree, but at the end of the day, we're AI, by the way.
Yeah, me too. Like, I'm taking AI easily. One of my hot takes is I actually think people who pick Steve Nash over Iverson are insane. Because I think,
and to me, it's easier for, like, AI could do the stuff Nash does. He just chooses not to. Where Nash just couldn't do the stuff Iverson could do.
Like the first 4-5 seasons of Nash's career, he was legitimately, no disrespect, he was not a good player. Like the first 4 years he was with the Suns playing behind Kid or whatever. Like it took him a while to get going. Then he went to Donnie Nelson with the Mavericks and Dirk, and a great offensive genius who was ahead of his time and helped unlock his game. Then he went to a Game Shark in Mike D'Antoni and unlocked him even further. Could you imagine if Allen Iverson played for Donnie Nelson or Mike D'Antoni and they were like, maybe we should put the ball in this 6-foot guard's hands who might be the fastest point guard ever instead of giving it to Eric Snow and having him bring the ball up the court. I could go on a long rant about it, but it's too deep in the podcast for that at this point. But my point is, you can have heated debates with your friends or whoever. You can have heated conversations. Sometimes you might disagree, whatever. But those conversations are fun because basketball is like one of those sports where it's more art form compared to the other sports. Like there's an art to it. Like there's only 5 players on each side. There's a lot of individuality. There's a lot of things you can do with the ball compared to the other sports. It's fun to that type of game emits a type of conversation where you just sometimes a lot of it's hyperbole and historical what ifs, and that's the fun part about it. As long as it's smart and nuanced, you're not coming in with some dumb shit. Even though I'm susceptible to saying dumb shit every once in a while, but it's GOAT talk is fun to me. Like all the historical stuff and comparing and stuff, talking about it, that stuff's fun to me. It's why I don't take it's why I'm not one of those, advanced analytic nerds like we were talking last week who just take inside the NBA way too seriously and they're like, why is this even on the air? Why is inside the NBA here? It's like every part of the basketball, good and bad. Yeah, I take with it,
Absolutely. But yeah, I think the thing about the GOAT talk, it's okay. Let's get this out of the way. If LeBron wins a championship, if LeBron matches Jordan's 6, if he wins 2 more championships with the Lakers, I don't know how you argue that he's not the GOAT.
Agreed.
I really don't.
I agreed. Even Bill Simmons said it. I was like, wow. He was like, if LeBron wins 2 more, and now you could tell the Jordan people are adding extra stuff to make them turn themselves into just in case. They're just like, LeBron has to win. If he gets 2 more championships, then there's no reason. It's like, I don't know if he does. Some people are still hanging on to Jordan. I have a turn this year. I think LeBron's the greatest, but if he wins 5 or even 5, I think at that point. But if he wins 6, you can't argue it anymore.
No, absolutely not. And so I'm always going to have this opinion, and I think this is true. Obviously, it's a lot of qualifiers, and I don't. Part of it maybe is the Laker fan in me. I still believe that Kobe Bryant is the most skilled basketball player ever, and I think that if you give Kobe LeBron's body. If you put LeBron and Kobe in the same body, I think Kobe is the GOAT. But I think LeBron's body and his physical tools are so overwhelming. And I think LeBron is so intelligent with the ball. And so he knows how to use his body so well. And it gives him such an advantage that it makes him the GOAT. But I think that Kobe as a skilled player, the form, the footwork, the moves, everything that Kobe did to me it makes him the most skilled player. But I don't think it makes him the best player. I think
I think Hakeem Olajuwon would have something to say about that.
I think him and to me the top 3 in my opinion are him, Jordan, and Hakeem. Kobe, Jordan, Hakeem to me are the 3.
That's a good 3.
That come to mind where I think about just pure skill. Body type aside, just pure basketball skill.
I think Steph Curry has to be up there just because while we could quibble about how elite we think he is as a ball handler or passer, the third skill of the 3 basic
shooting,
ones, the shooting, he's by far the best at it. And so I think he has to be in there as well. But that's a good top 3. Yeah, Kobe. Yeah, now that I think about it more, like Kobe's footwork was so incredible. Like
Dude, you could just I love watching Kobe highlights, not for like the dunks and just the footwork and like where he positions his body and how he gets the defender turning in a certain way.
Yeah,
Like
he's
all kinds of
definitely
stuff like that.
he's one of the best, most skilled players of all time. I don't know if I might have to think about the that might be a nice little homework assignment for next week's pod. I might have to nail down some of the most skilled players in NBA history myself and where I'd rank them. But that's a good list right there, the 3, and then I'd probably throw Steph in there as well.
Yeah, it's the thing with Steph is like Steph doesn't come off as clean to me. Like he has all the moves and all the skills and stuff like that, but it comes off as it's less precise when I look at it. And it could just be the way that Steph carries himself, and like I don't want to put
It's probably because it probably looks less precise because he's not, doing one-on-one post stuff where you can see the technician stuff that Kobe does, or the stuff that Melo does in the post, quite frankly. Like his stuff is technician like also. So
so it just comes off as more like sloppy and loose, where again, it's not a bad thing. It's just like a thing of when I watch Jordan or Kobe, you can see like, dude, every foot placement, every
has
turn
a
purpose, and you're like, man, they are just, there's no wasted effort. Everything they're doing is to get their defender moving in a certain way or to get to a spot or whatever it is.
Yep.
It's fucking beautiful to watch. It's awesome.
Yep. That's why I love watching Harden too, because even though he grifts and he he could, maneuver his way to like a night where he shoots like 23 free throws, like his footwork on step backs and euro steps and like his ball handling, like as janky as that ball handling looks, he's still breaking dudes' ankles. Like he's literally I've watched him live drop 3 people. I watched him drop Wesley Johnson against the Clippers, and then he dropped Jamal Murray, and then he dropped Ricky Rubio a few years back and hit 3s in their faces. And I'm just like, okay, if that's like one of those, if I was at the park, I'd probably would see a fight, because if somebody had that happen to them, that would not fly, And so like, that's why I like watching, Harden, or even though I watched Kobe growing up, because it's like, God damn, he's so good. Like with his footwork, everything has a purpose. He'll do like a power dribble and give you the shoulder to see how the defender would react, and then he would react accordingly. Like Kobe was great. Rest in peace to the Mamba.
Absolutely. And so I bring that up because a lot of people, when they say like LeBron's the greatest player of all time, whatever, or LeBron, when remember like early 2010s, there was the Kobe LeBron debate of like who's the best player in the league.
Yeah, I was a Kobe.
Yeah, and so I was always a Kobe guy. Obviously, I was an LA guy, Laker guy, so Kobe to me. And so the argument was always like LeBron's so much better, and I was like, yeah, but give them the same body, give them the same tools, and I'm Toby's the more skilled basketball player, and they're like, the fuck does that mean? We're skilled basketball player, give them the same body. What the fuck does that mean? And I was like, you don't know. If you don't understand what I'm talking about, there's no point in having this discussion.
Yeah.
I was like, if you don't understand the nuance of like what they're doing, and then you're just LeBron at that time, his only move was power to the basket.
Yeah, and he would have like that janky little like turnaround fadeaway he would do when he was younger, and that was it.
Now, by the way, he hits it he's been on fire to hit that this season.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on with him, but he's hitting that turnaround jumper at an insanely high
But
clip.
you notice people are trying to retroactively like determine when LeBron was the best player, and it was like in 2009-10, it was like, no, Kobe was, for 2009 and 2010, 08 too, like Kobe was the best player in the league. Like
that was when he started to learn how to trust his teammates more.
Yeah,
too.
that was when the Lakers were a contender. They got Pau, and me and my friend were freaking out at the lunch table because we were just like, they literally got Pau Gasol for a bag of fucking chips. That's an automatic.
Oh, dude,
that's a championship team right there.
Dude, the Lakers, Mitch Kupchak gave them a bag of trash and was like, "Here you go. You
Well,
want to take this out for me?"
the
And
funny
give us
thing
back
is, if you 10 years later, that trade doesn't look as bad because the
No,
Grizzlies got
they had
Marc
Marc
Gasol,
Gasol.
and that provided a
At the
whole
time-
era of grit and grind.
At
you
the
know,
time,
at the
all they
time,
got
it was a bag
Kwame
of chips.
Brown.
I was mad, dude.
All they got was Kwame. They got rid of Kwame Brown.
Kwame Brown, as Stephen A. Smith would say.
Goodness,
Yeah.
Kwame Brown.
But what was I had one quick parting thought about the Blazers before I go.
Yeah.
Because they just got shellacked by the San Antonio Spurs today.
They did.
It is still early. It is still 15 games in, although it's starting to become a decent sample at this point. But I think I might have to push the Blazers down to being a bubble team. Because
Well, remember, Eric Bledsoe did not play today.
no, I'm talking about the Blazers, not the Pelicans.
Oh no, not sorry, CJ McCollum.
No, they did not. No, CJ McCollum did not play today, but
And Nurkic is out for the
I'm
year.
concerned about the Nurkic injury. He's going to have surgery on his wrist, and he's going to be out at least for 2 months for sure. Zach Collins still isn't back. All of a sudden, Harry Giles is thrown in there, and I love Harry Giles, but he hasn't been able to crack the rotation. Their defense is still awful, 27th per cleaning the glass in defensive rating. They allow 115.4 points per 100 possessions, and they were supposed to actually be better this year after getting Robert Covington and Derek Jones Jr. and Rodney Hood back with Gary Trent to kind of supplement the bigger guard/wing players to put around Damon CJ. And the Blazers still kind of stink. Compared to what people expected of this team. I think it might be time. I'm keeping my eye on the Blazers. I might have to start reevaluating what I think about this team, especially because
So I think we're deep enough into the season. We'll talk about it next week, but I think we're deep enough into the season where we just have to start reevaluating where our picks are.
Yep.
And so, quick note that I'll leave you on, and I don't know how you feel about this. The gap between the Lakers and the rest of the league, to me, it was big to start the season.
It's bigger.
It's even bigger now.
It's bigger. The crazy thing is, the Clippers are starting to separate themselves from the rest of the non-Lakers league, right? Like, somebody tweeted it. I think it was a Jason Maples on Twitter. He's a good follow, but he said the Clippers got better, but the Lakers got better in all caps better.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. And it's like,
It's insane to me how far ahead they are to the rest of the league, because you can tell they're still not trying hard at all,
mm-hmm.
and they're still messing around with their lineups.
What's
Like,
crazy to me is
They're
people,
playing around with weird lineups,
yeah,
and they're still blowing teams out.
yep. And if you look at it, everybody's like the Lakers are coasting, all that stuff, all that's true, and you look and they're still 11-3, you know. And it's like they had that weird opening day loss to the Clippers.
Well,
Okay, I don't care. I don't care about
They got
that.
the rings.
Really.
They got the rings.
I really
and
don't
they-
care about that loss. They lost to the Spurs too, but that was also weird. Also, it's funny to me that it just seems like the Lakers are on national TV a lot. Do a lot of people not know what they're seeing with the Lakers? Because like guys like Bill Simmons and like Russillo, and we talked about this too, but like guys are saying like LeBron's rejuvenated, he's playing hard and stuff, and I'm like, what
Clearly
LeBron?
not trying.
I'm like, what LeBron are you watching? Like, and it's not to say LeBron's playing bad. I want to be 100,000% clear on this. LeBron is
sleepwalking. Through
LeBron
this season,
is sleepwalking through
20.
this season, though. Like there was a game, and I wish I could remember the game, but he took he airballed a free throw. He threw a one-handed over the head pass. He tried to do a dump down pass. I think it was either to Gasol or Davis, but he clearly overthrew his target, threw it out of bounds, and then in the end of that third quarter, he took a one-legged 40-foot three that he missed badly, and he just threw it up. Like he wasn't like he was like, whatever, I'm chucking this shit up.
They are laughing and smiling and like giggling the
and not
entire
gelled
game.
together yet, and they're still winning.
And not just winning, but they have their number one in defensive rating.
Yep.
I think
Back
they're
up.
still in the top 5 in offense.
Yep,
And
they're number 1 in defensive rating. They're number 3 in offensive rating per cleaning the glass behind the Clippers and the Bucks.
And they're not trying that hard.
Nope, they are not trying at all. it's kind of it's wild. I think this is
And they're resting guys. They're resting players every game. Every game, there's a different 2 Lakers out with some kind of weird, like, oh, it's a shoulder injury.
I like how last year LeBron decided he was going to lead the league in assist, and now LeBron is apparently deciding this year that he is going to shoot the best 3-point percentage of his career since the 2014 season. He is shooting 38% from 3 right now on 6 attempts per game, and this dude is turning around, looking at Dennis Schroeder like, where's my $100 before the ball even goes into the net.
It's fucking incredible.
24, 8, and 7 is what LeBron's averaging right now. And he is firmly in the MVP discussion, not trying.
Yeah, and again, I don't want to like jinx it, and as a Laker fan, I don't want to sound cocky, but I have a hard time seeing any team giving them any kind of a challenge when they turn it on and when they eventually start gelling and they get going.
Unless the Nets make some kind of big move, or the Sixers have a move in them where they could get an elite perimeter creator, which is probably only Bradley Beal at this point. If the Lakers don't win the championship this year, you could say it's an abject failure, I think. Maybe if they lose to the Clippers, and Laker fans aren't going to want to hear that shit anyway. Losing to the Clippers in a playoff series. Not that that will ever happen anyway, but
I don't even think that's going to I don't even know who they would lose. Like, there's no team, if the status quo doesn't change, right? If everything stays the same, we don't get any kind of big deal. I don't know what challenge they run into. Which to me is scary because it means that they might get complacent, but at the same time, I don't know.
It's LeBron. When it's playoff time, when it's playoff time, LeBron's gonna have these dudes going 0 dark 40 on social media for the playoffs. They're gonna be reading. They're gonna have a book club together. LeBron's gonna bring a bunch of books and be like, "Hey, these are your reads for the playoffs." He's gonna be like a school teacher, making sure the kids are focused. I'm looking at the West right now, and yeah, as it stands, the Lakers they're better than the Clippers. The Jazz, the Suns, who have been struggling a little bit, lost to the Grizzlies today. The Spurs are sneaky 5th seed with all the young guys they're playing. I don't see anybody, even the Bucks. Like I said, if the Sixers had gotten Harden, I would have felt pretty good about that series against the Lakers. But, congrats, I guess. I don't know what I'm supposed to say to you because you're a Laker fan and I don't want to pump you up. But the Lakers are the team right now. It's
been something that I've just been kind of watching all year. Just like, I don't know. And it's frustrating to watch as a Laker fan because I understand. Like, we'll get down 10, 15 points in the first quarter. I'm like, well, here we go. They're not trying. And then 5 minutes later, they're up by 5. And I'm like, what? Where did that come from? And then they'll just coast. And like, it's games where I go, man, they could be up like 30 and they're up like 10, but they could be up 30 and they're taking dumb threes and Kuzma's trying to wrap around passes to LeBron and LeBron's trying to like take these logo threes and smiling and they're throwing alley-oops to AD 50 feet away and you're like, what are they doing?
Yeah, they're bored right now. They're still the best record in the NBA.
Terrifying. But yeah, we've gone a while. We discussed a lot today.
Oh yeah, even has a football talk in here on the
absolutely. Do you have anything you want to add for next week? Anything you're watching? Anything you want to look forward to? Anything you want people to look out for?
I'm looking to see how the Suns start to kind of revamp because they haven't played in a week because of the COVID protocols. There's already been 15 postponed games, and so teams that have been missing multiple games, I'm looking to see how they, try to knock off the rust. Gonna keep watching the Washington Wizards situation because even though they score a lot and they suck, they're still fascinating to me. I don't know why. Like, there's like the train wreck that I can't look away from, because how is the whole Westbrook dynamic of this, the young players, and then the Bradley Beal thing. It just feels like something's going to happen there in Washington soon. I don't know what, but they are performing so low under expectations that I'm going to be watching for those guys. And also, the rookie of the race is getting very, very interesting.
I think LaMelo still has a very clear lead. He's leading in every category in terms of pure raw stats. So
I think Halliburton's been the rookie of the year so far.
Yeah, I think Halliburton has had more of an impact, but I think like LaMelo has just been given more of a leash.
It's time to start him. Please.
Yeah, he needs to start. Like, obviously, we both watched Hornets games. The dynamic of the Hornets completely changed every time he's in there.
Absolutely.
And again, he's leading in every stat category here. He's leading rookies in points, rebounds, assists, and steals.
Mm-hmm.
So he's playing fantastic basketball. I just don't understand why he's not playing more minutes. He's averaging 25 minutes a game. That should be closer to 30 to 32, in my opinion.
You got to stroke the ego and development of Devontae Graham.
Oh, God. He's playing so bad.
He is. You can still develop Devontae Graham bringing him off the bench. It's just he's not going to be one of the... I think he's not one of those dudes. I'm sorry. LaMelo's one of those dudes you try to groom,
Dude, the LaMelo Rozier backcourt is so much fun to watch, and then they bring Graham in, and you're like, man, this dude is a ball stopper supreme.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's the Wizards are going to be a team I'm going to be tracking going forward, and NFC Championship and AFC Championship game this weekend. Going back to football a little bit, those are going to be two really good games. There's 4 good teams left, and we're going to get 2 good championship games, I think.
I am praying and I'm hoping, and I honestly think that we're going to get a Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers Super Bowl matchup for the Eagles.
Oh, that would be incredible.
The amount of slinging going around, that ball will be flying around.
We didn't get a Brady Rodgers Super Bowl, but we're getting a Brady Rodgers championship game, and then the Bills and Chiefs they're both incredible offenses, and then if we get a Mahomes Rodgers Super Bowl, that would be good. So
yeah,
a lot of things to look forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening to us ramble on for a long time about things not basketball related or tangentially related to basketball.
Love when we ramble.
We appreciate it either way for sticking around with us this long, and we'll see you guys next week.
The B.O. Beat.